Hi everyone, it's Dr. Ford. I have gotten a number of questions, so I decided to record a video. I'm going to start doing videos for you earlier in the week. I know there's been a lot of confusion, a lot of changes, and so forth and so on. If you need an extension for the assessment that's due this week, just email me and I will extend it. No penalties. So I wanted to go over, and I'm not going to do this in presenter mode because I'm going to pull over a Word document in a few minutes. But this week, as Dr. Buck explained in our Thursday meeting, what you're doing throughout this class is you're building. You're creating the building blocks for your dissertation. Now, so what you did in week one, you provided research questions. So as you're researching, you may want to refine your research questions. In fact, I've had several students say, hey, can I refine the research questions that I submitted in week one? Absolutely. You're not married to anything yet. Nothing is set in stone. So as you continue to read more research, you may really find something that influences your study a little better than when you had started to research. So absolutely, I can't tell you how many times I revised my research questions. So anyway, this is about framing your research questions, your hypotheses, statements, and variables. So going with my theme, I kind of tend to lean on emotional intelligence. Why? Because I'm conducting some data analysis from some surveys that a client of mine has, so it's very easy for me to use emotional intelligence. So, based on the research questions, or the research that I'm doing, I created research questions. And here's one of the things I want to give you, okay? Ask yourself, what do I want? I want to understand about my topic, emotional intelligence. What relationships or outcomes am I interested in exploring? So I have 6 articles that I used to help me formulate these questions. And I'm going to be honest with you. This article that I found about emotional intelligence among women leaders, I have a sneaking suspicion that I'm going to actually reframe my research too, because I just found this article today, literally found this article today. So I have a sneaking suspicion that I'm probably going to reframe my paper, or not my paper, but my research. So anyway, but these are 3 questions that I asked. And again, as I said, look at this. I'm probably going to have to revise these too, because I have, again, a sneaking suspicion I'm going to really frame my look at my analysis on women. So we'll get to some of this in a minute, but some of the research that I found today led me to these questions. And I work heavy in technology, so project management is a big theme in my line of work. So anyway, so I've written these three research questions based on the articles. So next, you're going to formulate your hypotheses. So I've got my first hypotheses. Let's translate your questions. So I've written my null and alternate hypothesis. And notice how I wrote them. Emotional intelligence has no significant effect on leader effectiveness across organizational contexts, because that's my question. Does it influence leader effectiveness across organizational contexts? No, it has no significant effect, or it positively influences. So, when you're writing your hypothesis statements, make sure that you are really turning that research question into an effective hypothesis statement. So let's go on to my hypothesis number 2. Does organizational culture mediate the relationship between emotional intelligence, high performance leadership among women leaders? So that's my second question. So, my organizational culture does not mediate, or it does mediate. So again, Your null is, it's not going to impact. Your alternative rather, is it does. So as you're framing your research questions, I've had a lot of students who flip these and state them backwards. So null is always no relationship. Alternative is yes, there is. So number 3, my research question. What's the relationship between emotional intelligence and project management success across functional teams? Well, there's a whole new theme in and of itself, I'm telling you. So, emotional intelligence is not significantly related to project management. Again, pretty simple. No effect, positive effect. Now, the next step is you need to determine your variables. So, what you want to do is you need to think about what variables. So, reading this Suleiman article, I've got some independent variables here, and actually, I did some emotional intelligence research where the job satisfaction was my dependent variable. So, and based on the the survey data that I had. So here are my independent variables that can influence job satisfaction. So you need to think about your dependent variable, and then what are your independent variables as related. And then I also have, remember now, I liked that article I read about females. So if I wanted to break it down a little further, I could use control variables such as gender and age. Again, this is not specifically related to my research, but because I was reading Suleiman ahead of time. But this is a good way to really stop and think about your variables. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to my research question and hypothesis. I'm not going to reread these. But so what I've written is variables to consider. Emotional intelligence scores is my independent variable. My dependent variable would be leadership effectiveness ratings. I can't talk today. Usually you can get that from 360-degree feedback. Some companies use that. Sometimes there's performance metrics. And then I can have some control variables. The type of industry, the years of experience, leadership training. So now let me tell you one of the reasons why you're doing this. Chances are you're going to be designing your own tool, data collection tool, whether it's a survey, quantitative or qualitative, mixed methods, whatever. You may provide a survey that is completely qualitative, but you invite people to fill it in. You may not interview them. Let's say you've got 100 leaders. You're probably not going to have the time to sit down and interview 100 people, especially for if you're going to do qualitative research. So this is one of the reasons why you think about your variables. You're getting to that point to where it's going to help you with your research design. Okay, so that's why you think about that. So that's the variables I considered for my research question 1. Research question 2. Again, this is about the women. So emotional intelligence, we could either have them self-report as the independence variable, or it's peer rated. My dependent variable is high performance leadership indicators. Then I've got my culture. I could use Denison or the Okai framework. And then I've got my controls: age, industry sector. Again, sorry, I can't talk today. Or their leadership tenure, time on job in a leadership role. And then I also have my third independent variable, dependent variable, and my controls. So again, as you're thinking about this, and then of course I provided a reference list because I want to be effective when I'm presenting information to you guys. So then you're going to present a paper. Your paper is going to look like this. I'm going to pull this over here. That's why I didn't do this in presentation mode. So I have my paper here with my title. And I've noticed this in a lot of submissions. When you are creating your level 1 heading, you repeat the title of the paper on the first page because it is your level 1 heading. Do not use introduction. Don't call your assignment assignment or assessment essay 2. Give it a name. What's your research? Give it a name. And then I wrote a brief introduction so I know my reader knows what I'm looking at, okay? Then you would insert your research questions here. Let me fix this. Nope, I don't want to fix that. I want to fix this. I'm going to just go back over here. Why not? Copy my research questions because I took the time to put them in there. So, research questions. And of course, I've got all kinds of crazy little formatting here that I'm going to have to take out. Left, quit that, please. First line. I don't want a first line. I don't want any of that business. So, let's take off this. Yeah, you know, I copied it from the... And then I'm going to unbold that. And then I'm going to write RQ1, RQ2, blah, blah, blah. And of course, you do need to indent this because this is an APA style paper. Anyway, so then you want to provide your hypotheses statements right here. And again, I did some formatting on this paper. So put in your hypothesis statements and then discuss your variables here. What I would do is, that's why I have this PowerPoint presentation open. Because I have, now I can write this. I can write this out, so I can say something like, I'm not going to take time to write that. Variables. Discuss why you chose the variables that you chose here for this. And then write a brief conclusion. If you look at the rubric notes that you're supposed to have an introduction and a conclusion. So make sure you have that. And then your references list. And I've got all my references here. So this is what fill this in. This is what your paper should look like for this week. So don't copy and paste. Some of you have already started writing your dissertation. Don't copy and paste. This is a standalone assignment. So, therefore, explain really quick what you're doing here. I probably wrote more than I needed, but that's okay. Provide your research questions. Provide your hypothesis statements. And then provide the discussion of your variables. If you do that and then write a brief conclusion, you've met the requirements for the assignment. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, if you are confused, if you've submitted this and you don't think you did it correctly, email me and say, Dr. Ford, I need to resubmit. I need to resubmit it on Monday because the closing date is today, but I can go in and open. If you're happy with your submission, perfect, excellent. All you have to do is reach out. One other last thing that I want to mention, and I believe I mentioned this in my biography that I posted in the general VLC. I am happy to meet with any student. I'm happy to meet with you via Zoom. I can set up weekly meetings if you guys have a preferred date. Dr. Ryan usually likes to set up meetings on Thursdays. If you'd like for me to set up a standing time, say on Tuesday, for all of us, I'll do it. But if that doesn't work for you and you want me to meet with you one-on-one, I will do it. I do it for students at other universities. I do it everywhere. So I'm happy to meet with you. All you need to do is give me enough time. You can't email me at 5 o'clock Central Standard Time on Tuesday and say, Dr. Ford, can we meet at 7? Chances are I'm going to tell you no, because I I usually have something planned on Tuesday night that I do, which is a volunteer commitment. So anyhow, if you email me on Monday and say, Dr. Ford, do you have time on Tuesday afternoon? Chances are I will say yes. Um, Keep in mind, I don't work full time, but I don't work full time for anybody. So if 2 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon works for you, that's great. Again, don't email me at 1 and say, can we meet at 2? Because I may have other commitments. But keep in mind, I want to work with you. I want to help you in any way I can. So please just let me know. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody.